everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I want to talk about shearing. If you don't know what shearing is, it is a sewing technique where you use elastic thread in the bobbin to gather the fabric, and it can take a woven fabric and make it stretchy. So if you're unaware, this is a little crop top that I have made with a shearing technique. So you can see you use regular thread in the top needle, and then on the back side, I don't know if you can see that, it's elastic thread. So this was a woven fabric and it stretches now. So I want to go over the very basics of shearing, just rectangular pieces of fabric. This was a rectangular piece of fabric. This was, I have a few other examples here, how you can take a rectangular piece of fabric, shear it, and create a top or a dress. And we're going to go over the very basics of that. So the first thing you want to do is you will need to cut two rectangles. You'll need one for the front and one for the back. The length of your rectangle will depend on what you're making, whether you're making a top, a dress, if you're going to add tiers on to the skirt for the dress. So that is up to you. But for the width of your rectangles, you will want to measure the widest part of you, whether that's your bust or wherever. Just measure from side seam to side seam. Take that measurement and multiply it by 2. That'll be the width of your front rectangle. Do the same thing around your back, side seam to side seam. Take that measurement, multiply it by 2, and that will be the width of your back rectangle. You will also want to determine where you want your shearing to end. If you want it to be like a little baby doll, if you want it to end right under your bust, if you want it to end at your natural waist, if you want it to go even longer past your hips, you need to determine that and measure that so you know how many rows of shearing you need to do. So the first thing you want to do is finish the top edge of your two rectangles. There are two different things you can do depending on the effect you want. So let me show you. If you want a flat edge on the top, you would create like an elastic casing. Just fold over so it's wide enough to fit an elastic, whatever width of elastic you want. So that would create, here's another flat one that I recently made that has an elastic casing at the top. Or if you like the look of that like ruffly edge, you would just need to do like a little baby hem at the top edge. Here's another one with that ruffle effect at the top. So that is just a baby hem at the top. I created an elastic casing on this sample. You put in the elastic at the end, but I just folded over twice and sewed it so that it's wide enough to fit a piece of elastic through. Okay, so next, we're going to be marking from the right side of the fabric. Now you have determined about where you want your shearing to go to. So I'm just going to, this is just a sample. I'm not actually doing this, so I'm just going to pretend this is where I want it. So mark approximately where you want your shearing to end. It's going to be just a guide. And then you also need to determine how wide you want your shearing rows to be. This again is completely up to you. You can go as close together as like 1/4 of an inch. You can do wide, you can do 1 inch apart. You can alternate, you can do like 3 close ones together and then a wide one. It creates a really cool effect. So this one I just made is 1/2 inch apart, whereas the crop top, those are wider 1 inch apart rows. So it's really up to you. I am going to just, for the sake of this tutorial, we're going to do 1/2 inch. You're just going to start marking 1/2 inch lines across the entire width of your rectangle. So just keep marking your lines however wide you want them to be until you get close to that place where you want your shirring to end. But you can see there my 1/2 inch lines. And you will want to do that on both your front and back rectangles. Make sure you are spacing them evenly, the same amount on both panels. Okay, let's move on to the next step. There are 2 very important steps when it comes to shirring. The first one is hand winding your bobbin with your elastic thread. There's the elastic thread. It's stretchy. This goes in your bobbin only. And you do want to hand wind your bobbin. Do not attempt to do this by your machine. It will most likely wind it too tight. So you hand wind it so that it is not too tight. You also don't want to do it too loose. So that you just put one end through a hole like that. Hold it and just very, not loosely, but not too tight. Just a very easy winding by hand. Again, you don't want to like pull on the elastic thread to tighten it, and it doesn't have to be perfect. It's actually doesn't matter. It's going to look a little messy, but I swear it works. So there is my hand wound bobbin with my elastic thread. If you have more than one empty bobbin available, I would thread more than one. This doesn't last very long. You will most likely run out, especially if you're doing many rows of shirring. So if you don't want to stop mid-project and rewind it, just load up 2 or 3 bobbins. Okay, so I've gone and threaded the bobbin, the elastic thread bobbin, into my machine. The thread on the top through your needle should just be regular thread. The next most important step in shirring, there are 2 basic steps, and that is hand winding your elastic thread into your bobbin and increasing your stitch length as high as it will go. But let's talk troubleshooting. These are the basics of shirring, okay? I'd love to say that it is going to work perfectly for you every time, but every machine is different, right? I have 2 machines. For this machine, I just have to do those 2 things and it shears beautifully. My second machine, not so much. I had to do a lot of playing around with the settings to figure out how to get it to shear. So some troubleshooting. If this alone is not working for you, if hand winding the bobbin and increasing the stitch length is not creating the shearing, don't worry, it is not you. It is your machine, I promise you. So some troubleshooting, some things you can try. You can try adjusting the tension. My tension is up here. Try playing around with that tension. You can also adjust, it's dirty in here. You can also adjust the tension of your bobbin case. It's usually a little screw that you have to tighten, but those are the 2 next steps I would try if you are having trouble shearing. Again, it is your machine, I promise you. Increase that stitch length, hand wind your bobbin, and then try your tension of both your upper tension and your bobbin tension if it isn't working. If it still is not working after playing with all of those things, try a few different things with your bobbin. Try winding it a little tighter, try winding it a little looser. All machines are different. Some machines are a little more finicky. Okay, so my stitch length is increased. We're going to start on that first line, the top, my first guideline, and you're just going to slowly start stitching down that line. See, it automatically gathers up your fabric. Look at that stretch. That's that elastic thread doing its job. So a little trick, instead of stopping at the end of each row, clipping your threads, going back and going down each line individually, a little trick is to, when you get close to the edge, when you're within the seam allowance, keep your needle down, pivot, sew a few stitches down until you're at your next line, pivot again. And we're just keep doing it that way, like you're zigzagging down each line. So now you can stitch down the second line. Now you may want to pull on this where it's elasticized. You may want to pull it to make it nice and flat so you can stitch the next line. Once again, I am close to the edge, so I'm going to pivot. Sew a few stitches. Pivot again. And now sew down my third line. Once again, stretch it a little bit so it's nice and flat as you sew down the next line. And you're just going to keep doing this, zigzagging down each line until all your lines are sewn. One other thing I do want to note is if you are doing many rows of shirring, keep an eye on your bobbin. I mentioned before that one bobbin, one hand wound elastic thread bobbin, will not last you a whole garment if you're doing many rows. And you do not want it to run out mid-row, trust me. So keep an eye on it. When it starts to get low, you'll want to stop at the end, put in a new hand wound bobbin, and start fresh at the beginning of a row. If your bobbin runs out mid-row, it's not fun. So keep an eye on that bobbin. So there I have one side sheared. You can see on the inside there, that elastic thread. I don't know if I mentioned when we were sewing, you have to sew with the right side of your fabric facing up. Otherwise, that elastic thread will show on the right side and you don't want that. There's one side and there's that ruffly edge at the top that I talked about, which is really cute. But if you do not want that, if you want that to be flat, you would just take a piece of elastic with a safety pin and thread it through. There we go. That one is flat with the elastic through it. This is the other side I did with that ruffle edge. So you can see the differences there. One more troubleshooting note that I just thought of. After you're done shearing, if it is not as tight as you think it should be, hit that shearing rose with some steam from your iron and that will shrink it up a little more. Okay, so I'm not going to put the elastic through this one because it is just a sample, but now all you would do is you would take your two pieces, put them right side together, and sew up the side seams, and that will create your top. From there, you can do lots of things to really make this your own. You can tack on some different straps. You can add some tiers to the bottom for a dress or just a longer top. Lots can be done here, but I hope those tips were helpful for understanding shearing. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments, and I will throw up some photos of some of the pieces that I've made that I showed you earlier. I'll throw up some photos so you can see that.